Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just want to read a notice out first, as I believe that's what we usually do for this meeting now. Welcome to the Folkestone and Hythe District and Parish Council's Joint Committee. This meeting is streamed live, as you know. Can members keep their microphones off unless they are due to speak? And if you can raise the hand button if you'd like to speak. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is to appoint a chairman for this meeting. I believe it's the parish's turn to appoint a chairman.
Yeah, I propose Frank Hobbs.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Paul Thomas. Yeah.
Thank you. Is everybody in agreement with that? Thank you.
Agreed.
Over to you then, Frank.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Terry, I can't actually see you, so I'm not quite sure if you want to speak, how I'm going to, all I've got, I think, is you're a number 44742.
I'm here somewhere.
Yeah, that looks like you, because when you spoke then, there was a yellow line came up. So, well, I've got no
But I'm not moving. Something's gone funny with my camera.
Right.
Doesn't matter. We'll be all right in a minute.
Okay. Any apologies for absence?
No, I've not received any, Frank.
Thank you, sir. Declarations of interest. Has anybody got a declaration of interest they need to disclose for this meeting? No? Right. If you do find there is one later, then you'll obviously have to pull it up then. The minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of July have been circulated. Are you happy that they're a true record of the last meeting?
Agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. So we move on to the guts of the meeting, as they say. Welfare support update, revenues and benefits, and Andrew Hatcher, I believe.
Indeed, that is me. Thank you very much. I will try and share a presentation. If it doesn't work, please tell me. So presumably, Sue, I've got the share screen option. That is good. I think I do.
Yes, you should be able to.
So hopefully you can see a blank screen at the moment.
Yes.
Right, I shall start the slide then. So hopefully you can see my name on a purple screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Jolly good. I will start talking then. So yeah, I'm going to just give a brief presentation about welfare and support. So welfare and support that has been offered, is being offered by the government and obviously by us at the council. So first of all, I'll start off with what government support has been delivered thus far. So you've probably heard about most of these in the press. So the energy support package, which is a £650 one-off cost of living payment for those on means tested benefit. So like universal credit, income support, job seekers allowance, and so forth. The first of those instalments have been paid, and the second instalment is being paid currently between the 8th and 23rd of November. So that's happening as we speak, and that's being delivered by the Department of Work and Pensions, who pay those benefits. The second one is energy bill support scheme, which all of us should be recipients of. This is for every household in the country, £400 through to March next year for all UK households. That's £66 applied to bills in October and November, and then £67 for every month thereafter. That's being delivered by the utility companies. And then on top of those, some cost of living payments for vulnerable households. So those on means tested benefits will receive an additional £900. Pension households will receive an extra £300, and individuals on disability benefits are receiving an additional £150. There's certain criteria around all of that, and dates you've got to be in receipt of benefits and be a pensioner by. But I won't go into those details. But that's kind of what's been delivered thus far by central government and other organisations. Then it comes to what we do. Now, as a team, we've got various different arms to what we do. The first parts are the sort of what you would call, I guess, the basic administration of what we do at the council. So that's the council tax. We send out the bills, we collect the money in, and so forth. That's sort of the bread and butter of what we do. Working alongside that is our local council tax reduction scheme. So that's where people are on low incomes, such as benefits, or working on low incomes and pensioners. They can receive money off their council tax bill by applying for support for council tax reduction, what used to be called council tax benefit once upon a time. And we also administer housing benefit, technically on behalf of the Department of Work and Pensions. Housing benefit is decreasing because of the rollout of universal credit, but we do still receive new claim applications for all pensioners because they can't claim universal credit, and for supported accommodation. So that's where care is provided as part of the tenancy, and for temporary accommodation where the council has placed a household into temporary accommodation for the housing needs. And obviously we have older cases that haven't yet transferred across onto universal credit as well. And in terms of council tax reduction, just to give you a bit of insight on that as well, there's a national scheme for pensioners where they can receive up to 100% support for those on the lowest incomes. And for working age people, it's local schemes to each council. And our scheme here at Folkestone and Hythe is the maximum support you can receive through that for a working age person is 75%. So they'll always have at least 25% of their council tax bill to pay. That's after any discounts or exemptions they might have. And the final three elements on the presentation here: discretionary housing payments, financial support payments, and the household support fund. That is what I would call the welfare arm of the team, and that's what I'm going to talk in a bit more detail about those schemes now, to give you a bit of background information of what they are and what they can do. We also deliver the test and trace scheme for people during COVID lockdown as well, but luckily that is behind us now. So discretionary housing payments. So this is a fund supported by the DWP. They provide the funding for it. So the money we get is what we're given by DWP. We don't pick the funding. And this is a fund to basically support people for short-term emergencies, to alleviate hardship, basically to find alternative solutions for shortfall in their income. To apply for this, an applicant must be in receipt of either housing benefit or the housing element of universal credit, which obviously replaces housing benefit. Most of this is for top-ups in rent, where obviously the housing benefit rates don't meet what the rental levels are, which in a lot of cases, certainly in this area, that is more than often the case in private rented, because we're restricted by local housing allowance rates, again, set by central government, not ourselves. And also for some lump sum payments, we can help with arrears in certain cases, and rent in advance and deposits for people who want to move into more affordable accommodation, or indeed that might be homeless and then need that extra support to get them into a property that is obviously suitable for their longer term needs. For last year, our funding was just over £289,000, and we received just under 500 applications, making almost 400 awards of support, spending almost every single penny of that last year, which was good. Our funding for this year has reduced, as has been the case across the entire country, despite the fact that everything's gone up. The money that we could offer as support has gone down, which is often the way. Current spends, these figures are up to the end of last month, so not as they were today, but the end of last month. So as you can see, the need is very much still there for this year. And the applications, I think, by the end of this financial year, will probably surpass where we went to last year. So, and one thing I will say with this, the applications are online via the website, as they are for the other schemes, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And with discretionary housing payments, to make a decision, the team look at the income and expenditure of the household, and sort of, as it is with financial support payments, which is my next slide, we sort of look at the entire package of the household to see what support we can offer. So as I say, financial support payments, this is a little bit like discretionary housing payments, but for council tax. So where somebody is in receipt of council tax reduction, so therefore already on that low income, but they are struggling to pay top-ups in their council tax to us at the council, we can offer them a financial support payment to reduce their liability. This is funded in collaboration with Kent County Council. They support this scheme, so any awards is a shared cost. It's not a cost to just the district, it's a shared cost with all the preceptors. For last year, we had almost 700 applications and almost 500 awards made. You see the value there of that award to take that money away from households having to pay that in council tax. And this year already, we received 400 applications, awarding 272 to a value of 134,000. These are purely for in-year liabilities, so council tax charge for the year from April 2022 to March 2023. We do consider applications for older liabilities and debts, and they're outside of the scheme, which is under section 13A of the council tax regulations, which is what the numbers are at the bottom there for last year. So that's for older debts, because some of these households, when they are brave enough and do come forward to us, and we look at DHP and FSP together as an overall package as well for these people. But if the debts go back further, and we consider that it's not in the best interest for the council to chase some of those debts to get people in a much more grounded position going forward, we will then consider going back to previous year's liabilities as well. And that's where those bottom awards are on that screen. And then we have Household Support Fund. I have a few slides on this because there keeps being different phases of it. So I'll try and make this as simple as possible. So in October of last year, central government allocated additional funding to a new scheme for vulnerable households called the Household Support Fund. This funding is given to Kent County Council, and they keep quite a large sum of their funding for themselves to share with residents throughout Kent. A large part of their funding they keep aside for free school meals during school holidays. And they have money kept aside for other schemes such as the Kent Support and Assistance Scheme, and also for fuel vouchers, which they've been running throughout the different variations of the Household Support Fund. But they do pass the monies down to us in the districts and boroughs. So the first phase of Household Support Fund ran, well, for us from January till March, because it takes a while for the money to be sorted out with Kent County Council before they tell us what we've got. So for the 3 months at the start of this year, we had funding of 171,000, just over. And we were doing such a good job, Kent County Council words, not mine, of allocating that money to vulnerable households. We actually received an additional £50,000 in funding on top of that as well. Every single penny of that went out to residents in the district. So as you can see on the right hand side, I won't go through each one in detail, but you can see how the breakdown of households with children and households without children were broken down, and we supported over 1,400 households with that funding. You can see a large part of that was support with food, and that was via us allocating supermarket vouchers. A majority of 99% of those are online vouchers where we were allocating them to the chosen supermarket of the resident, and then they can then go and spend that in the supermarket accordingly. But we also supported people in other ways. We were able to support people by helping people replace boilers. And one thing we also did was we found out through the application process of people applying for the support that people wanted help in other ways. And one thing that came out which shocked us a little bit was around beds, and the number of people that came and said they couldn't afford beds for people in the household, in particular children, where people were either sleeping on sofas or on mattresses on the floor. So what we did was we worked together with a local supplier, and through this process, by the end of it all, we had delivered 25 beds, mattresses or bed frames to a combination of 18 families in the district, but otherwise wouldn't have had that. On top of that, for phase one, we also helped KCC out with some of their fuel vouchers because they weren't able to cope with the demand that they had. So we stepped in and we helped out, awarding over 800 residents with help with their bills which otherwise wouldn't have had that support from the KCC because they wouldn't have coped in the time frame. So when that finished, we had a short breather before phase 2 came apart, which ran from August to September of this year. A larger emphasis of this was on pensioners' support energy bills. As you can see there, £364,000 of that funding was for pensioners and only £95,500 for everybody else. So as a council, we use our analytics to identify the cases who may be eligible using obviously information we have on people on low incomes. And we awarded over almost £307,000 value to pensioners. A lot of that was via direct payments into bank accounts. So they could then directly pay that into their fuel companies. We also help with essential goods, such as white goods and boilers, and also even a couple of beds and some carpets as well. There's some households that literally have no carpets or threadbare pensioners, which obviously helps with the heating bills going forward as well. On top of that, we also received some additional funding because we spent all of ours, but other councils in Kent didn't. So we got some extra funding for that, which will help us with some admin funding support going forward. For phase 3, which is due to start hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we now know we did get our funding earlier this week. It's a lot less. It's about 200,000, so not as much as we had last time. So it's not going to stretch quite as far. But we will be launching that scheme once we've finalised all the detail on that shortly, and that will be on our website probably in the next week, I would hope. And there is also a professional referral route for energy support administered by KCC, which launches in the next 2 weeks as well for help with fuel. A lot of our scheme will be based around the food and supermarket vouchers because that's where the need isn't met elsewhere by the scheme. So that's Household Support Fund. Just a little bit more about the welfare team, just to give you a bit of an insight into sort of the other work they do beyond all of that. They do a lot of proactive work in terms of identifying and supporting vulnerable residents who otherwise don't come forward. We've done campaigns to encourage pension credit take-up, to increase incomes for residents, as well as council tax reduction take-up, again, to put people in a better financial situation going forward. And they're also, as you can see in a couple of pictures there, actively out in the community as well, engaging with key groups, such as the Armed Forces veterans at the top picture, the Nepalese community at the bottom there, as well as being involved with the Roman community. We ran an event in collaboration with Dover Council, a P&O event for all of those earlier in the year when P&O decided one day to release all of their staff. So we ran an event to help support them. We also have a close relationship with the KCC community wardens, not only to pass our information out to the district, but also for them to come back to us of what they're finding out and obviously to identify vulnerable people to us as well. And on top of that, a lot of training going on across the whole spectrum of welfare, the latest on loan sharks and problem debts, which obviously this time of year, with Christmas funding coming up, is quite prevalent for us. We're also sort of part of the Refer Kent process, referring people on to other organisations such as Mind and other referral external organisations, as well as being a member of the Money Advice Network since June of last year, where they can organise callbacks for immediate help when people are in talkative mood. When you've got them, you want to keep that information flow going. And although we can't help with some of that information and data, we can pass on to people that can. As I mentioned before, we're also one of the partners that can refer into the KCC fuel voucher scheme, which is due to relaunch the next couple of weeks. I want to tell you a bit more about our UK Prosperity Fund projects, which are hopefully due to launch quite soon. We haven't had confirmation of the funding being awarded yet by central government, but the plan here is for us to, over the next 2.5 years, to use the funding we get from that. From my perspective, there's some other parts as well, which Joyce and Leanie is part of for food, but we're looking from our perspective of helping people on reducing their costs and sort of making them more green aware as well for their items they've got on their properties. So we're talking about delivery of power down units to turn off items that are on standby, boiler service and replacements, oil system tune-ups for those off grid, white good replacements for more energy efficient ones and ones that work better for people, as well as, again, hopefully an expansion of the bed project, which I mentioned before, because we've got people who are sat by waiting and we know are suitable for these schemes. We just need the funding to do it. So, and before I use up all my time, I won't talk about these, but you can have a look at them very briefly. Just some feedback from some people that we have helped, whether that being helping with their ongoing health problems and forwarding them onto the particular organisations and reducing their costs going forward. I can share these afterwards and the slides, as well as people's mental health issues and people obviously having lost jobs through COVID and the support we were able to offer. And one on this final page, which is due to be delivered next week, or next week and a bit, which was a boiler from our latest household support fund, where 3 generations in a household weren't able to fix their water system, had no hot water. I'm using pans in the kitchen to wash themselves, and have been doing that for quite some time. And we use our funding to work with, to fix the plumbing, working with Swale to fix all of that and get them a boiler, which they have said has been life-changing, will be life-changing for them, having a bath before Christmas. And we had people in tears, which is fantastic to hear that we can help people out with that. And it's been recognised. I mean, this year, the IRRV, the Institute of Revenues, Ratings and Valuations, are kind of our governing body in a sense. And we are finalists in 3 categories this year. In one for excellence in education staff development, which we won last year. And we got highly commended in social inclusion, and also a winner of the big one, the Benefits and Welfare Reform Team of the Year, which was a wonderful shock to us all, beating some big boys like Birmingham, the biggest council in the country, which was rather nice. And a nice recognition for the team as well. We can tell them they're good, but it's nice to get that recognition from a wider audience. I've put this in today because things are changing all the time. Obviously, we've had the autumn statement today, and there's some bits in there, so I'll mention that very quickly. There is an alternative fuel scheme that's due to be launched in the next few weeks, really. I don't know any more details yet because the launch event isn't until next week. But this will offer up to £200 to support households on alternative fuels. I get the impression that as an authority, we will be delivering that, but I don't have any more details about that at the moment. So that's something to look forward to. They also announced the Household Support Fund will continue into the next financial year. So that fund will continue in some form. And the cost of living additional support is going to be extended into next year as well. So you can see there, those payments from this year were going to be repeated again for next year. And all benefits will increase by 10.1% to match the September CPI. So everybody on benefits will get an increase in their incomes as well. And there's a cap on the social rents at 7% to keep those costs down for local residents. And I think that's about me done. So any questions, please, let me know. I shall stop sharing my screen so I can see people. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Andrew. Still showing a blue screen at the moment.
Yeah, it's frozen. I'm trying to get it back up again. Don't worry. I'll do it in a minute. Just loading up. There we go.
Better? Any questions? What I'll have to do, Terry, with you is I'll have to ask you individually in a minute whether you've got anything to say.
Something wrong with my camera.
Yeah. Anybody else got any questions they want to ask? Paul and then Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Thank you, Andrew. I think that's an excellent story to tell in terms of delivery of those benefits, the scale of it, the complexity of it. I mean, that's really good. No, so well done for that, and well done for your team. I mean, that's a real success story. On the UK Prosperity Fund, just in terms of the power down units, I think, like a number of other parishes, we've been contacted by a company that want to focus on a particular part of New Romney, a particular area of social deprivation. Has that been endorsed by you as part of the UK Prosperity Fund project? Because it came out of the blue to us in terms of we hadn't seen it before, and somebody wants to come and talk to us about how it's all going to work. I can't remember the name of the firm, I'm afraid, Andrew.
It's not something I'm aware of, so not to me, no. I say we haven't sort of started rolling with this yet because myself and Rod in the room as well, we're still waiting to hear about that funding. So no, that's not anything to do with me at this stage. No one's approaching me about that.
It sounds like somebody may well be jumping the gun then, Andrew. That's all. With respect to that, I might have seen it coming along. So we were just deciding how we should play it. And as I knew we were discussing something like this tonight, I thought I'd wait until then. So okay, Andrew, thank you very much for your for what your team have done, and thank you for answering my question. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Roger.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. I'd endorse that entirely, what Paul said there. That's a really heartening story to hear, that so many people are being helped. It's fantastic. I'm a member of Folkestone Rotary Club, and we've been working for 2 or 3 years on a Money Matters scheme, which was handed over to Rainbow. Yep. And my question really is, how efficient is your net? How do you know you're getting the people? And those people who perhaps are not aware of all this, if they are, it's hard to believe that they wouldn't be, or haven't got access to internet or whatever. How do we get those people to know that this help is available?
Yeah, we obviously we do advise our local partners of what schemes you have up and running. We have quarterly sort of welfare benefits meetings with them. Rainbow Centre are one of those organisations do come along as well, so they're aware of what we're doing. We have also recently, which came out of a large event we had in September regarding the cost of living crisis. We had an event for that in the council, and from that we've actually developed a cost of living leaflet, and there are posts as well going out into the district as well. I think that's an 8-page leaflet, and that is available. So I would say if you are interested in that and you know places where that can be distributed, please let myself, Joyce and Leanie know something like that, and we can get them produced and sent out, because that's got information not only on the schemes I've mentioned here, but also some other sort of general support that government offer and other sort of funding that's available from other places as well, including the food networks that are out there as well. Oh look, Councillor Hollandsby has one to hand. Look at that, as if by magic. One of those.
No, thanks, Jenny. I mean, that would be perfect if we could all have posters and put them up on our parish notice boards, for instance. And then I was thinking, we've got 2 surgeries in Lyminge and a library. We could put them in those places, or even the convenience store. Put your leaflets in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, if you know how many you want and where we can go, we can get them out. And I do know that the team that they're out in the district have been going out and putting them out into certain areas. I don't know where they are because I don't manage that team directly, but I know they have been doing that. Can
I just say, just to chip in on that, they're in pretty much every single convenience store in New Romney. They're in the library. They're in the assembly rooms. They're in the old school. So I mean, there are hundreds of them out there already. So your team has already been out and done.
How did they come? Oh, it was the team, was it, Paul, that delivered those to you?
It was indeed, I believe, yeah. So I
may not have been.
I asked the convenience store, and they said somebody turned up and put them on the counter.
Okay. Brilliant, thank you.
Jenny,
Fantastic.
you're still muted, Jenny.
Sorry, Frank, I thought somebody else was before me. I was just going to say what Andrew's just said in terms of the cost of living summit and how the revenue and benefits team work very closely, particularly with the 3 hubs and all the other partner organisations. And I think it's something that we will continue to have some kind of a partnership working, which we've had since the beginning of the pandemic, really, and we'll continue, and we'll grow stronger all the time. And I was just going to say about the award that the revenue and benefits team, but Andrew mentioned that, but I think, you know, we were very proud as a council of the work that they've done throughout this the pandemic and since, of course.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, it's really just to confirm what Roger was saying. I mean, one of our worries in Lymm is that there's certain people that are worthy of these grants, and we need to target them. But by the sounds of it, you do look out for algorithms and things from various info that you get. I mean, it sounds good, the leaflet, because we actually do a newsletter which we actually deliver to every house in Lymm monthly. So perhaps we could get some copies of that, and we could put it down to the press. We don't want to deliver to everybody because we're quite an affluent parish, but there are obviously people that do need help in certain things. So, but we don't want to draw it to their attention, because that's one of the problems is that people that are entitled to it aren't always keen to apply for these things. So we have to be careful as to how we offer those services. And a similar thing, obviously, the fuel scheme. Obviously, being a rural parish, we have a lot of oil-fired boilers, which can represent a very high proportion of people's fuel costs. So again, by the sounds of it, that's still a little bit in development out of that, how that £200 is going to be delivered.
There was literally an announcement, I think earlier this week, Monday, I got a letter from central government suggesting this scheme was coming. And there's a countrywide call set up for next week to tell us what that is. And that today, that was for originally £100. Today they announced that's going to be 200 to be delivered winter, is all they've said. Obviously, we don't quite know how, because how is their data, is it our data? Because we don't have that information. Hopefully the government do. But then we need to have a delivery scheme, and then IT companies will need to deliver for us as well. So it's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight, but as soon as we get it, much like we have with delivering the energy rebate payments to people we have been doing over the past 6 or 7 months to everybody, that £150, which is almost done. Only 2 weeks left to go for that, which I didn't mention in my presentation. We've also delivered that to all the households. Yeah, we will look to be doing that as soon as we get the IT and the actual information. But the impression is that we will be doing that. But if I have more, I would happily tell you, but sadly, I don't at this stage.
So going back to the flyers, if I got in touch with you or one of your section, they could send us. So I mean, we don't the 600 houses. We don't want 600, but there might be 50 to 60, and then we put it in the individual newsletter and actually post it direct to people that we've identified as perhaps being of help to them. So that's a good way forward. You think?
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Yeah. It's just email myself or Joyce and Dini. We're both sort of heading that up, and then we can pass that information on to the print room to produce them, and then we can get them. We can get some of our guys at the district probably come and deliver them to where you want them delivered, and then you can distribute as necessary. I don't see why we can't do that. That was the reason to having the leaflet in the first place. So absolutely, that's what it's there for.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thanks. Right. Anything you want to do, Terry?
Me?
Yes, you. Yes.
No, it was all good stuff, that report. I'm more concerned with the fact that I can't get my camera to show my face. I don't know whether any of you can see me, but I'm half inclined to turn the thing off and come back in again. It started off with me on, and then it decided it's going to get rid of me. So I apologise for that. But no, the whole presentation was pretty good. It gave a lot of very good info. I think that's all I can say.
Thank you, Terry. I want to say I add my congratulations to the team for what they've done. And obviously it's been nationally recognised. You've got the trophy there with you.
And one of them. I haven't got a big one, I've got a little one. But yeah, I've got one of them.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you.
Andrew, sorry to interrupt, Councillor Hobbs. Andrew, if you want to pass that presentation over to me, I can attach it to the minutes for people who aren't here today, so they'll be able to see the information as well.
I shall email that across to you, Sue, not a problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Item 6 on the agenda is the Carbon Innovation Lab and District-wide Carbon Plan I look at the names on the board here. That Martin isn't here, so it must be you, Olu. Is that, have I pronounced it right?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it is me. I'm just trying to share my screen. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes, that's grand.
Okay, then thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you all. So I'm Olu Fatokwan, the low carbon specialist for Folkestone and Hythe District Council, and I'll be talking to you about the Carbon Innovation Lab and the district-wide carbon plan. So we all know that we declared the climate emergency back in July 2019. And since the part of it was, us as a council making a commitment to have a leadership role within the community with public and business partners, business partnership to move us towards net zero. And since then, we've put together a proposal to the cabinet, which was approved on the 23rd of March. The idea is that the council as well is acting as a leading, directing role. So we're as much a participant of it as, the stakeholders when I get talk about the Carbon Innovation Lab. So I was told part of my remit was to deliver a district-wide carbon plan. I'm thinking, the council's emission of this is just 0.38%. How are we going to just do a strategy? So we decided that we're going to work more in collaboration with the entire district. And it is based from an approach from London Borough Council, who have been running a kind of carbon innovation lab for the past 2 years. So we formed the Carbon Innovation Lab, which is an informal voluntary forum just to drive the local actions for us to reduce emissions. We have had 3 meetings since. So based on, initially what's happening is we've gotten the data from the business energy and business industry Bs. I can't remember how they're called, business energy and something industry anyway. So in terms of what they say that our emissions are, this is based on data, and there are 5 priorities areas, which is our road transport, our residential, our commercial, other activities, which wastewater, food production, and land use. We're talking about our green spaces, our biodiversity, natural capital. And so with the Carbon Innovation Lab, we basically went ahead, started cold calling people based on information that we got from our internal and external comms, and put together a group of people ranging from businesses to interest groups to community groups. The main aim is to develop and deliver actions to reduce our energy emissions, energy use, and to impact on climate change. We have to work in collaboration because we can't do it alone as a district. We also realize that there's so much going on across the district. So this is kind of like, let us understand the opportunities that we have, we have already, build on it and identify the gaps, address the hurdles to actually us achieving net zero. And in the process, look at how we can deliver quick wins, both in the public realm, private sector, and the community. So with the Carbon Innovation Lab, we've had 3 successful meetings thus far, and this is just highlighting the key themes that have been coming through. And as I said earlier, we had 5 priority areas, but for the Carbon Lab, what's coming through right now is transport and behavioral change seem like the pain points that the district wants to address for now. So over the last 3, we've met over the meetings. This is what, are the main themes that are coming. Interestingly though, so we had the meeting. So as I said, the emerging areas are sustainable transport and behavioral change. And the last meeting we had, which was on the 5th of September, we had an ideas mapping session, and a lot of ideas came up. And based on that, we've kind of tried to analyze what are the key themes or key projects that are coming from this. So the district itself is very keen to work with the schools. So we're thinking of looking at the focus of eco school programs in terms of what this is kind of like us deciding what are the possible rules for the CI lab, the stakeholders, what are the possible rules for the council itself. And, I'm hoping that, I can speak to you all to find out what are the rules that the parish and the town councils, the district councils can help with. So, already we've engaged with quite a few schools right now. I think I've been speaking to in total of 9 schools. There's so much going on within the school about them trying to teach their people to be to connect with the environment and the nature around them. So there's so much work, as I said, there's a lot of work going on already within this case. So we're not starting from the beginning, we're somewhere. The idea is where we are right now so that we can map a way to the future. And then we have the second part is working with local businesses. In terms of that, the focus is to become greener in terms of possible rules for the council for the carbon lab. Wanting to
You disappeared on me.
Yep, you stopped talking.
You've frozen, Olu.
Nothing's happening at all.
Yeah, it's frozen.
can help us to, to get to net zero. Can help the businesses as well to move. And then the fourth project coming up, likely project coming up, is helping privately owned occupied homes. We all know the cost of living crisis, and we're trying to focus on energy efficiency to reduce the cost of living. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, but your screen's gone.
You disappeared for a little while.
Yeah, we can circulate the slides afterwards. So
bear with me. I'm just going to be sharing my screen. Has it come through okay?
That's great.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Oh, we can see it now. Yeah.
Okay, apologies. I noticed that something went wrong there. I wasn't quite sure. So this is basically for us to identify, those vulnerable people among the communities who might benefit from this. So based on this, we currently have, I think it's the org to the Eco Lab. We've been allocated some money. I think that they're still defining what exactly, what the criteria is. But what we realized so far is we're not getting a lot of people to come forward to say, I'm vulnerable, I need this assistance. So we've tried to identify the possible roles for the Carbon Innovation Lab, and we've tried to identify the possible roles for the council itself as, the organization. And obviously, I'm sure within the parishes and the town, the district, we can identify people that that would need this kind of help. The good part about this is, so the application process within the economic development group, they can actually help people, because we realize as well when it becomes funding or it becomes applying for something, people don't really understand the process, or it might be a bit too daunting. We do have system in place for them to walk through the process with the applicant. And the fourth one that we're trying to look at right now, bear with me, I'm just going back to that slide to some view from current slide. So the fourth one is the cycle and the sustainable transport. We're trying to focus on cycle and footpath improvement. When we had the ideas mapping session, we noticed that, there's issue with from the infrastructure part to people having the confidence to be able to navigate, some tricky areas. We're currently working with Kent County Council to understand, what are those bottleneck areas. And we're understanding that there's funding for commuter parts and not leisure parts. We're also working with Cycle Ship Way and just trying to see, how we can progress on this. These are possible roles for the CI Lab and possible roles for Folkestone and Hythe District Council as a council. So the idea is, as I said, we are just a participant in this as well. We can collaboratively work and identify how we can help each other to walk towards this the net zero journey that we're trying to go to. So this is us just thinking, what can the district and the parish councils do? I know in terms of, where the parish and district council are already ingrained within the society already. So I'm believing there's a lot of help that can come from the district and parish councils. We've just pointed out a few, we don't know it all. So lead parish-wide push to improve health benefit, to decarbonize, highlight examples of initiative. We're also encouraging people, because as I said, there's so much going on. If people can send in what they're doing, because we do have to deliver a plan to go back to the cabinet. And we want to identify, showcase what we are doing. We don't really talk about ourselves enough, what we are doing as a district, really amazing things, showcase what we are doing. First of all, that highlights what we're doing and also helps to, you know, like say, you're doing something within your locality, you can highlight it and you can get people like volunteers within that area to say, oh, this is happening beside me or around me, I can want to volunteer with that. So I guess it's just to find out what the parish and the district councils can do. And before I take like contributions, comments and everything, also, so we did say that the major things that were coming out right now is the transportation and the behavioral change. As a council, we're working with Kent County Council and a consortium of a few local authorities. And the idea is we're trying to understand the behavior, why people are not necessarily wanting to change behaviors to adopt low and energy efficient measures, targeting at people with low income, low to medium to low income earning. And we've spent months trying to develop a campaign. So there's a currently Share the Warm campaign going on. It was launched on the 7th of November. It will go for a month. The idea is, you know, click on it, watch a few videos, which shows you little things like turning down your thermostat, your flow temperature of your boiler, things like putting radiator reflectors, 5 simple tips. There is a survey to fill and there's a challenge. The idea is, you know, I might know of what to do, but I might not be able to do it. But I can get my, you know, friends and neighbors and family within the district to say, I'm coming to your help to help you fix a radiator reflector, or simple things like that. So the idea is we share the warmth and make sure that all throughout the summer, this winter months, no house is left without the warmth that they require. So that is just to highlight this as well. And so if I can take any questions, any thoughts, any, you know, in terms of how the parish and the district council might or are able to help to ensure that, you know, this is all a success. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need to stop sharing.
Anybody want to say anything? Hold the hand there. Roger.
Oh,
Paul.
After you, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Roger.
All right.
He's very gentlemanly this evening, isn't he?
Well, you know.
As always. Yeah, thank you, Olu. I actually sit on the Climate Change Advisory Committee for Kent Association Local Councils. And at our most recent meeting, we had a presentation from Sarah Deakin from KCC, and also from Janet Hill, who's the Climate Change Officer at Swale Borough Council. And they've got some excellent stuff there, which we put onto the CALC website now. I just think in terms of, you know, what's trying to be achieved, you know, I think in terms of the scale of what needs to be achieved to meet the targets, for me, the thing that came out from Sarah that was most impactful was the fact that we need to reduce our carbon by 13.3% annually. And in the last 12 years, we've only managed 3.5% annually. And I think that's quite shocking, actually, in terms of, you know, all the easy stuff is done now. And we're now looking, what do we need to do to change what we do socially? And that's going to be, you know, by far and away the most difficult thing to achieve. We did have a bit of an update from Rob Robinson, who runs the low carbon grant scheme for KCC. And it's not very well subscribed at the moment. So again, I think in terms of what we could do as a district, it really would be worthwhile pushing out what Rob and the team can do to help, you know, local businesses to do the things that will help them to achieve, you know, our collective aims. And I know in New Romney, we recently, there was a planning application that was recently approved for St Nicholas Primary School, which was part of the decarbonising public buildings, which was to remove the boiler and to replace it with 4 ground source heat pumps and update the radiators and the pipe work. I mean, quite a massive scheme, actually, but, you know, it just goes to show when people do think about what they can do and what they can tap into. And I think part of the role of the district now and through the emerging projects, and you did touch on it, Olu, is to make sure people know what is out there that we can tap into that we can then start sharing the good practices and helping people and helping businesses to get to the right place in terms of what we need to be doing differently as a country, basically, Olu. So that's the only thing I wanted to say. And we are due to have a climate change conference in the new year, and I think it'd be really useful if you were to come along to that conference and to be either one of the guest speakers to say, this is what Folkestone and Hythe District Council are doing, because I think in terms of the action plan and that, I think it's a really good story. And again, I think it's worth getting the feedback from other people in terms of, you know, what could be done differently. So again, I think if you're okay, I'll email you separately, and we'll look at getting you on board with that as well. Is that okay?
Okay, that's very fine. I'm happy to come along, and thank you for that. Yes, like you said, we need to, you know, be working together, and you've rightly said, you know, we need to get the word out there half of the time. So we're obviously within the CI lab, we're trying to understand based on, you know, the recipient's point of view, which is the public, the businesses, what are the barriers. Like with the Federation of Business, we've sent the green grants to them to say, if you're a business applying, what is stopping you from applying? So that we can find out where the hurdles are as well, because until we know, we can't help to see if, you know, how we can remove the hurdles or make it simpler.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that.
No, that's okay. And at New Romney Town Council, we actually piloted a carbon calculator, which was rolled out by Calc earlier in the year. And we also gave that to a couple of local businesses because some of the things that they do, it's very applicable. It's a very easy tool to use. Doesn't help you with the solutions, I hasten to add, but at least it gets you to understand where you are exactly and what you could and what you need to focus on. And in fact, the local business, in fact, it's a high street cafe. The father of the two girls that run it keeps cursing me every time he sees me, because he's now not using the van when he delivers the vegetables to local care homes. He's now got a trolley that he pushes around New Romney. So he thanks me every single time he sees me, believe me. That's it. Thank you very much. That's
very valid. Like I keep saying, what you can't measure, you can't monitor. So the fact that actually lets them know what they are using, then, you know, it brings that conscious awareness. And also the bulk of what we do is behavioral changes, about how we change. I think recently I'm beginning to learn that even saying changing behavior is quite big, can be quite daunting. So how we start to vary things so that we can start to walk towards the future we're trying to achieve. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's all about eating the elephant one bite at a time.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roger, then Terry.
Yeah, Paul, when's the climate conference that you mentioned, and where is it?
The date is early part of the year, and we don't know yet because we want to line up Rachel Coxcomb, who's a recognised speaker who came and spoke to us at the Calc AGM last year, and we want it. It really depends on her availability, so it will be made available on the.
Calc or New Romney?
It'll be Calc, so
okay.
It'll be on the Calc
we'll
website.
Look out for that. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. No, mine's an observation really about changing attitudes and things like that. And you said you've gone to all the schools, and I guess quite a few of the parishes represented here have a school within them. And a simple thing would be to start the old walking to school business. Most of us presumably walked to school when we were kids, and it's absolute gridlock at school time, isn't it, in the smaller parishes, when all the Chelsea tractors come out, and it's an absolute nonsense. If we could just get some of those parents actually walking their children home, it would be brilliant. Just a small point.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's very valid. We're also working, because with the schools, there is the KCC offer bikeability program, and all the schools I've visited actually are signed up to bikeability. I think the only hurdle is most schools can only do one class at a time. So we're hoping that, you know, I guess it's resources, funding and all that, but they can sign up to bikeability program. And also what we're working is about people, that perception of safety. So we're trying to create that, you know, people understanding if they know how to ride the bike, then they're able to, you know, to ride. And also we're hoping that eventually we might be able to have kind of like a bike repair center where people can do some sort of 360 check so that they know that their bicycles are also roadworthy to be able to go. So it's all in stages, but we're looking at it from the infrastructure to the people to the perception of safety. Thank you very much.
Terry,
Yes, can you hear me?
yes,
You can't see me, but can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. I have a habit of playing a bit of the devil's advocate. All I'm going to say is that Paul, I think, was quite right when he mentioned the problems with convincing, let's call them ordinary residents, the social side, that things need to change. And if I can bear, or rather you bear with me for 1 second, like many, many, many kids, I grew up in a 2 up, 2 down, no electricity, no heating, no bathroom, no inside toilet, gas lit with one coal fire. And we would sit in front of that coal fire with jerseys on. Bringing up to date now, my wife sadly went into a care home about 6 weeks ago. Since she went in, I have had no heating on whatsoever. I do not believe it's my job to spend money on keeping me warm while my wife is in a care home. I put another jersey on. I tell a lie, I do have the heating on for 1 hour in the morning while I get up. Then it goes off. It's off now. I'm cold. I'll put another jersey on in a minute when this is finished. To just glibly go to council or wherever and say, whoa, we need warmth. Can you give me some money, please? And then to throw them a bundle of money is not good practice. You go back and say to them, there are other ways of keeping warm. Have you thought of putting a jersey on? Now, it is serious that there will be people around, and I don't blame them, people around who know they can get grants to keep warm and who will have their heating on full all day. That's where we need to step in, not to say, yes, you can apply for one of these grants, here it is. That's not the answer. So coming back to my original statement, as an engineer, I'm not convinced, first of all, that global warming is man-made. It will take me a long while to be convinced of that. Although I am prepared to be convinced, I'm not convinced. I think I've said my piece, as I say, a devil's advocate, but other opinions must be listened to. And there's lots of people around in the district and the country who just perhaps feel a bit like I do. And that's all. Thank you. I'll go back to bed.
Can I come back on that? Thank you very much for that.
I'll just go to the hand first, lower the hand. There we go.
Thank you very much for that. Very valid. Like I also say, every little helps. Yes, you can do that extra layer, and you can, I guess, in terms of thermal heating, how you feel, it varies from one person to the other. But also, I think it's kind of like trying to explain to people there's wider benefits to it in terms of your health, your safety, like if you start to cycle, a lot of there's ripple effect that would happen on the NHS because there'll be healthier people. So it's kind of like looking at the overall benefit. It's not just I want to keep my eating on, or, I want to, look at the overall benefits of it. So as you said, we need to communicate this more, and together we're going to have to do it. So, it's every little helps. We're going somewhere.
I think you're right. If I could just say, I think you're right, Olu. There are many aspects, and obviously I didn't include them all, but you're quite right.
Right.
Yeah, a couple of observations. Obviously, we've got a couple of high carbon emission loadings from some of the international networks that go through our area, namely the M20 and the lorries that roll through. Now, obviously, they are quite high emitters of carbon, and really that could only be a national solution to those issues. And then linked to that, as a sort of quite a minor bugbear of mine, is that over illumination of public areas. Now, I know Sevington's not in our area, but that is massively over illuminated at night for a handful of lorries. It strikes me as a huge waste of energy, and the emissions and the carbon that's generated by generating that energy. Also the Euro tunnel. I understand these areas do need illumination, but the lights they seem to leave on unnecessary. In Lymm, we've got a business park. They don't seem to work out that obviously you put on these high power lights for 16 hours a day in winter, you're costing yourself money and you're not doing the environment any good. So I think that's one of the areas you could perhaps push in, and you could almost see an immediate advantage in that I feel they could probably reduce their illuminations by 50% and it'll have no health and safety impact whatsoever. And it will be benefit to everybody. It will be darker skies and less emissions.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, in terms of the road vehicle as well, yeah, you said it is national. So we're kind of like focusing within the plan. We're going to talk about what we are as a council, as a district can influence, because they're like circles of influence. So what we're trying to focus now is what we can as a circle, as a district to influence. We're also we're working in partnership with Kent County Council, who owns most of the larger infrastructure, and just trying to see. So we are doing what we can. And thank you for that comment. You will be taken on board. And I'm not sure how we're going to do the illumination thing, but we'll find out.
It's all right, Paul. I've seen your yellow hand. So your turn next, or now.
Oh, thank you very much. If just to go back on something Roger asked for, so just to say that Calc have now signed up to the NALC Climate Change Network, which you can get to through the Calc website. And picking up a point that Terry made, Frome Town Council have created are working on an action plan called Creating Green and Resilient Communities. And it covers all those things that, or some of those things that Terry's alluding to in terms of what people's history was with regard to their energy usage compared to their energy usage today, and said, if you did a comparison between you as a 9-year-old and you as a, I don't know how old you are, Terry, I don't want to embarrass you, but, you know, for me as a 65-year-old,
the other side of 80.
Indeed, that's right. But it's hugely different, isn't it? But, you know, life has changed in those times. What they're saying is do that comparison and see what you could do to bring your carbon footprint down. And I think just coming back on Mike's point about lighting, it's a very valid one. I think, isn't the Tiger Inn having an issue at the moment about their lighting outside the pub? Well, there's FHDC policy RL9 on lighting. And again, it might be worthwhile saying, is that something we could have a look at? So when we get planning applications come through in the district, should we be a bit more prescriptive about what we would allow people to do? And I know in some of our areas where we've got conservation areas, like we have in New Romney High Street, for example, you know, you have to have lights to shine towards the wall. You can't have backlit illumination, that kind of thing. But again, you go to the petrol station in New Romney, and it's like a blooming Christmas tree 24 hours a day. It's just ridiculous. So again, I'm just supporting what Mike is saying, really, that, you know, there are things that we can do, that we can influence through planning. And again, that was one of the points that Rebecca Coxcomb made a little while ago, that, you know, whilst we're agreeing, you know, we've got what we've got with regards to the things we've got now, if we're trying to change things for the future, then focusing on what we're doing for the future and influencing things that way might well be, you know, beneficial for us to go and do that. So I notice Adrian's nodding vigorously there as well. So maybe that's something we could take forward to another planning forum at some time in the future as well. Thank you very much, Ernie.
Thank you. Adrian, do you want to comment on the planning?
Yeah, no, I take on board the points about illumination. I think probably where we struggle, the development management team as well, is changes that people make to their homes sort of after they're built, really, you know, putting in security lights and that kind of thing. I speak from experience where I am in Sussex, that all of the houses around me seem to have these lights that come on whenever the wind blows and sort of blast out into the night. So I guess part of it is about the planning permission, but also part is about the enforcement of it afterwards, and making sure that we as a council have enough resources for the enforcement side as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And also, I guess, just to add is, part of everything is we're doing both mitigation and adaptation as well. It's mostly how we change our behavior, and we need to just keep encouraging people to. The way I look at it is, I've done things, I'm 40 something odd years old. I've done things a certain way for so long, and you're telling me to start to change it. It will take a lot of resistance to start with, but we have to keep talking. We have to keep prodding, and we have to keep encouraging and identifying what the wider benefit is for people, and eventually we will get there, I believe.
Well, I think maybe if Terry offered his house out and we could get local residents to come and spend the night with Terry, it might change what they do in their own homes at some time in the future. Would you offer that open, Terry? What do you reckon?
Don't start him off.
Talking about security lights, I have a very small, well over a year ago, I bought it and stuck it on the wall outside. It's solar powered, tiny little thing. I think I bought it in Wilkinson's for about £5. It works super. It works super. Whenever my car pulls up or I walk along, on it comes. I can't believe how good it is. So that's costing no effect to no use of power at all to power that, and it's the best little boy I've ever bought. So there are things around you can get.
Taking on from what Mike was saying about the lighting in various places, it's noticeable that still the Highways Agency hasn't done anything about converting the motorway lights to LED. KCC has done all of theirs. I don't want to jump on Roger's perspective on lighting, but the district is now changing over the street lights within the district to LED, which obviously they don't use as much energy and they last much longer.
Yes, definitely within the district we are. I think we've done, we are definitely doing the LED lights because we needed to adopt it. I think that according to the last report I got phase 2 of that is going, it's almost completed. So yes, definitely we've changed properly most of all lights to LED. We are going to.
If I may on that as well, Frank, just to say that we do have, it's a balance, because you can't put the same blue light everywhere because it affects moth populations. So again, it's just one of the vagaries of moving to LED lighting, I'm afraid, that is confusing the moths incredibly.
Understandably, I keep saying it's a balance of everything. We're trying to get to a world where we're balancing in such a way that we're not adversely affecting our future generation. So yeah, definitely, I do agree with that.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, in that case, thank you very much, Olive.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting. Hopefully, if you could send your presentation to Sue, then she can send it out.
Yeah, I will send it, and for the conference in January, I'm happy to be involved. So if you keep me updated on the details.
Paul will keep in touch with you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ola.
Thanks.
Right, the final item tonight is next steps, Folkestone Town Centre, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Levelling Up bids. The agenda says Ewan Green, but I guess it's probably
myself,
Adrian, or is it Rod?
It's me, Rod. Frank. Yeah, it's Ewan passes on his apologies. He couldn't make it tonight, so he asked me just to step in. So I'm delighted to do that. I shall attempt to share my screen. Sue, it says disabled share. Host disabled attendee shares.
You should be able to. You should be able to do it now, Rod. It obviously bounced off. Let me try again.
Still saying that at the moment, I'm afraid.
Oh right, okay. Hold on, I'll try again. It keeps saying I've co-hosted you, but it's not working. Bear with me. I'm trying. Right.
I'll co-host on my screen now. So.
Bear with me. Let me try again. Where are you? Lost you now. Haven't even got you listed now. Bear with me. Here we go. Let's try again. Yeah, Rod, it does say you are a co-host.
Okay, I shall try again.
Can you try again?
Yes, something's happening, I think, this time, which is good. Hoping.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like it's
moving. See that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Great. Okay. Well, I'll introduce myself. I'm Rod Lee. I'm the Chief Officer for Place and Growth. So I'm going to talk about the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Levelling Up Fund. So the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is part of a suite of Levelling Up Fund schemes, and they've got £2.6 billion set aside for all these different schemes, and the UK Shared Prosperity is one of those schemes. The scheme itself basically has three key objectives. So there's the community in place, there's supporting local business, and there's people and skills. It's both a revenue and a capital funding, so it's not all capital, which tends to be the case in my arena. So there's revenue as well, which is gratefully received, and the whole allocation for Folkestone and Hythe has been done by a funding formula, and it's not a competition, so we don't have to compete.
Hang on a minute, Rod. At the moment, we're still seeing the first page.
Okay.
It hasn't moved on.
Has it moved on at all?
No, we're still on the first page.
Okay. Let me see.
I can see the pages down the left-hand side of my screen.
But you can't see technology. It's definitely not moving. I'll stop sharing and I'll try resharing and see, does that make a difference? Bear with me.
I'm sorry, Frank. I'm going to have to give my apologies and leave the meeting now. Is that okay?
Okay, Paul. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you there on Saturday?
I'll be there on Saturday. Yeah.
See you there.
Yeah. Bye now. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Seems to have moved on.
Yeah.
We can see that, Rod.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I might not put it on a show screen then, because maybe that might be doing something bizarre to the computer. So if you can all see that, I'm happy to go on that basis. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So yes, so I was talking about, it's not a competition. We've been allocated £1 million over 3 years. Which at the time was a little bit disappointing because there was a big kind of hoo-ha about the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and I think everyone's a little bit disappointed it was £1 million. It sounds a lot of money, but when you spread it over 3 years, it's not a great deal of money to play with, and that allocation isn't evenly split either. So we've got it kind of marries up with the sliding scale of the European fund as that kind of diminishes, the UK prosperity increases. So we've got 100,000, I'll come on to that in a minute, but we've got roughly 100,000 for year one, and then we've got about 200,000 for year two, and then that's the rest for year three, 700,000. So it's because it's not a competition, we had to put together an investment plan, and then we had to sort of set out really the district's key priorities, with the aim of then getting that signed off by central government. And once that's done, then we can unlock the allocation. And as Andrew Hatcher mentioned earlier, we're all kind of eagerly awaiting that announcement, and we've been told hopefully that'll happen in the next week or so. That's what I've been informed, so fingers crossed. So in terms of the investment plan, we had to kind of put together a kind of strategic context of how we've derived at that investment plan. So what we did, we looked at the recently adopted corporate plan, which was well communicated and talked through with the community and an engagement, and there was lots of sort of activity around that. And then the corporate plan was kind of derived at. So that was a really good starting point for us to kind of look at those key actions, and then from that identify how that marries up with this UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The other aspect we looked at as well was looking at the kind of issues post-COVID and the cost of living sort of crisis that's emerged and how that's affecting the community. So I think the kind of general consensus was really to really focus on the people-centered priorities, really kind of look into those. Now, within those 3 objectives that I mentioned earlier, and without going into all the detail, there's sort of 41 interventions and there's a whole raft of different things, but not all of them are relevant to Folkestone and Hythe. And I'll come on to those in a second. But what the aim of the investment plan is, you select a grouping of those interventions, and then you kind of talk about what you're proposing to do in terms of delivering those sort of interventions, which have a series of outputs and outcomes to it. So sorry, that's all very boring council-y kind of speech there, but it's kind of relevant as I'll talk through in a second. As I mentioned earlier, it's a small amount of money, so we're having to kind of work with things that are kind of in tow at the moment, and look at how we can kind of enhance and add value, I suppose, to some of those schemes that are already in place at the moment. And again, I'll talk about that in a moment. So as mentioned earlier, the 2 main sort of themes we wanted to focus on was cost of living and skills. So we started to look at these themes in detail from all that kind of strategic context, and I think we looked at 3 key interventions. Out of those 41, we're looking at 3 key sort of interventions. One was around the capacity building and infrastructure support for local groups, and that was really enhancing the community hub service, the three hubs in the district, and trying to see if we can add new services and enhance what they do, all the good work that they do at the moment. So we're looking at to try and give advice on reducing cost of living, and then sort of maximise and kind of the outreach really of some of the work that Andrew's doing in his team to sort of really publicise that and maybe add value to that as well. We're also looking at the sort of food arena as well, and how we can kind of advise people on how you can do more with sort of less sort of ingredients, and make sure that they kind of have a really balanced diet, and that kind of advice, and as well as financial management as well, which is quite key. Again, very much linking in with my colleague Joyce Lenny and Andrew Hatcher. So a lot of the great work they're doing, we're able to help with that. So the Rainbow Centre is also a charity that we're working with in terms of the food side, and trying to bring in a mobile food provision that can sort of go around, but also demonstrate sort of ways of cooking, as I mentioned earlier, so that hopefully that will enable people to sort of do and sort of create more food, nutritious food for themselves, rather than sort of buying necessarily cheap processed food. That obviously has an impact on health, and also more importantly as well, children's diets, which obviously if they have a poor diet and don't sort of have the nutrients, etc., that has an impact on their educational attainment. As Andrew mentioned, I won't go over this again, but a lot of the work that Andrew's done, so we're expanding a lot of that in terms of updating the efficiency of equipment. So there's sort of old boilers, trying to replace them with new boilers. We're looking at those sort of tune-ups, so that's servicing boilers, making them work more efficiently where people can't afford to service them, where we might be able to step in and enable that to happen. This will all be done and kind of tested, and ensure that the people that do get that help are in need of that help, and they're not people, as I mentioned, as I think some people mentioned earlier, people who are trying to just get as much out of the system as possible. So there is going to be a lot of due diligence in terms of that, and Andrew's quite skilled and adept at doing that. And this will also, kind of help also with the greenhouse reductions, and sort of reducing some of the energy outputs and trying to improve by improving the boiler efficiency. So again, the aim is kind of twofold. It's helping with the cost of living, but it's also helping with the carbon reduction target that we're aiming for as well. And then the sort of last theme really is around the sort of green skills and upskilling. So again, trying to pick up on that theme of the carbon net zero agenda, and trying to ensure that we've got the people within the district who've got the skills that can help do retrofitting to buildings, and some of the kind of things that businesses and homeowners also are trying to do as they try and reduce their costs, but also reduce their carbon footprint. So we need that workforce, and I think there's an opportunity here for us to sort of build on that. The issue with this particular theme on the skills side is actually that doesn't kick in until the last year. And the way it's sort of set up at the moment is that in theory, you're supposed to design, deliver and kind of evaluate in that one year, which I think we'll all agree is very difficult to do. So we're aiming to try and design that program and ensure that we get the right program to maximize the sort of amount of money that we've been allocated to ensure that we get a really good output and get some good delivery as well. So we're working very closely with businesses and our educational partners like East Kent College. So the timelines, some of which obviously elapsed now, we're obviously at the stage where we've submitted our investment plan in August. We're now waiting for approval on that. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got a kind of an email actually I received to sort of suggest that we're hoping to have some approvals in place and starting to roll out for all districts and boroughs over the next couple of weeks. So we look forward to hearing that, because we've got a limited amount of time now to spend that first allocation of money, which is 100,000. So it's very important that we do get a decision very quickly now. So that was the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. I don't know whether I want to pause here and let people ask questions, or whether you want me to now go straight through into the Levelling Up Fund. I don't know how you want me to play that.
Has anybody got any questions they want to ask? No hands up.
Great. Okay.
Carry on.
If you do at the end, by all means, please do ask. That's not a problem. Okay, so talking around the Levelling Up Fund. So again, this is all part of that Levelling Up suite of support by the government. And the Levelling Up Fund is a sort of capital scheme to help areas that have sort of fallen on harder times, or they've got sort of areas of high deprivation, and it's aimed at trying to help those areas kind of regenerate and hopefully drive growth in those areas. So the Levelling Up Fund overview really is what I want to talk about here in terms of Folkestone and Hythe. It's in a category 1 priority list, which is a really positive thing. There's 3 categories, one being the highest. So that's really positive for us to try and hopefully access this money. It is a competition, unlike the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, so we do have to submit a bid, and it is quite a complex process, and there's a lot of information and evidence and kind of pre-feasibility work, if you like, to ensure that what we're proposing will deliver the outcomes to ensure value for money. The districts, we're allowed to put in one bid for Folkestone and Hythe. And that's up to £20 million. We've got to match that 20 million, so you can add to that. So in theory, we can go up to 22. The project could be 22 million, so we put in £2 million. That's the minimum match requirements that's required. And the tough part of the process is that it has to be delivered by March 2025, which is not that far away in terms of delivering a large capital project. The application deadline was the 2nd of August, so that was submitted to central government, and we are now awaiting their kind of approval. And I'll come on to that at the end. So what I want to try and do now is just talk you through the sort of process and how we got to the submission, or the bid, if you like. So Folkestone was chosen as a place to focus on. There was a whole raft of work, and again, excellent consultation and engagement that produced something called the place plan. And that place plan identified 74 projects, I think it was. And they varied from sort of small, what we call low-hanging fruit, which ones we can kind of start to deliver at low budget, to really high-level capital projects. As we kind of progress through that place plan process, we felt that we were now in a position to start putting together a bid, if you like, for the LUF fund. Now, as part of the LUF fund, they allocated Folkestone about 125,000 of feasibility money, which enabled Folkestone and Hythe District Council to actually start to build up all the evidence, all the kind of key information that we needed to get. And that meant getting a lot of experts in around civils, kind of demonstrating the value for money and all the other elements that they required. So we started to commission that work. And as we progressed that, we then identified 6 priority projects. And these are listed here. So you had the station arrival, which is at the top of town. You had sort of improved town centre gateway, and I'll show you a map of these areas in a second, which basically from the station arrival, drawing people into the town centre. You had Folker, which is the old Debenhams building, and then the sort of the key core high street, if you like, which is Sandgate Road. And all the town centre sort of public realm around that, including Guildhall Street. There was the F51 environs and Payers Park, and that was basically where the F51 is built to try and improve the road linkages around there and the environment as well, to make it a slightly more inviting area, especially in the night time, where I understand there's a lot of at times there's some sort of antisocial behaviour. So it's trying to improve the look and feel of that area there. There's the Harbour Line, which links right up to the railway station, and it was trying to make that into a nice sort of raised walkway, a bit like I think it's New York in America, and kind of reimagining that and potentially bringing something back that may act as a sort of a park and ride in the future. And then Sunny Sands was really developing that kind of water sports and amenity area there to really maximise the potential to draw in more tourism, which will obviously help local businesses. Unfortunately, to deliver all of that was way beyond the sort of 22 million that we could potentially put in as a project. So we had to narrow those down. So we narrowed it down to station arrival, the improved town centre gateway, and Folker. And that was because really those 3 projects really hit the key criteria within the LUF funding guidance. And also they were they could easily be linked together. So it created quite a cohesive arrangement of a project. So just to give you an idea of the kind of sums of money to do those different areas, you've got the town centre arrival for just over 4.2 million. You had the improved town centre gateway, 11.7 million. And then you had the Folker Sandgate Road and then the town centre, which is just over 6 million. So that totaled around 21 million, just shy of the 22 million. So we've submitted a bid. That's the ask for from central government of 19,791,819 pounds. So we're going to put in that match funding of 2.199 million. So I'll talk through now just to go back to the maps and just explain that a bit more in a graphic kind of way. This is the whole project area. It's probably really small on your screen, so apologies for that. But essentially, this is the station up here. If you can see my cursor, drawing down through, going down through into the town centre with Shellen Street, and you've got Middleburg here, and then you've got the sort of bus station area here. You have Folker here, and then obviously Sandgate Road and Guildhall Street down the bottom here. So that's the project area that we're kind of looking at. So I don't know how well this is showing on the screen, but essentially this is just, it's not good. That's good. Yeah. So we're aiming to try and obviously improve this area here, try and there's a mismatch of materials, try and make it more uniform, try and improve the cycle routes from the station into the town centre along Sheraton Road. Looking to, and as I'm sure many of you have walked there during a kind of the wet season, we've certainly seen plenty of rain recently. It really puddles and pools there. It's not a pleasant environment. So again, trying to improve the drainage accordingly as well. So make that a much more pleasant and more obvious as well. Again, if you're new to the area, it's not obvious where the town centre is without kind of really getting your, I guess, getting your mobile phone out and looking on Google Maps, etc. So we're aiming to try and put some wayfinding in there to kind of really help navigate people to the town centre. And on the right of the screen there, it's just an idea that there's the bridge as it currently exists. And here's some sort of ideas to try and improve that. Again, this is not we're going to put together. This is just giving us an idea, if you like, of what could happen there, just to improve it, brighten it up, make it a much more inviting area. And then we sort of walk down from the station through onto Sheraton Road, and we're trying to just improve that just with some trees, and again just improving the sort of paving, putting a roundabout here. So again, at the moment, that's a kind of a raised bed. Again, as you walk down here, it's sort of, where do you go into the town centre if you're new? It's not obvious. So again, trying to improve the signage around this area, and again the traffic flows as well, which will impact again on the Middleburg area down here, which we'll come on to in a second. But it's sort of that wayfinding, and we're looking to engage with creative Folkestone as well. Obviously, we have the triennial that happens every 3 years, which it draws in a huge amount of people. So we think that obviously that creative element is a really unique selling point of Folkestone Town Centre, and we're keen to ensure that that's threaded through the whole of the scheme as well. So we'll be asking creative Folkestone to work with the designers. If we're lucky enough to get the money, of course, I must stress that, then we will be looking for them to really kind of to have a watching brief over the kind of designers as they start to build this into a position where actually just, we've got the final designs and we're about to sort of tender and go out to that next stage. So we want to make sure that we've got that thread running through. And then moving down now onto the Middleburg Square plan, which is the heart really of the regeneration. For those of you who know the area really well, you've got the bus station here, as you can see on the right. It's quite it's an interesting area. Again, operationally, talking to Stagecoach, it's not the safest. So again, they're very happy for this regeneration to take place. Formally, for those who know the area far better than I, historically, this was a sort of a tennis courts and very green. So again, by reverting back to that, we're bringing back something that was almost there. Not that we're bringing tennis courts back, I hasten to add, but the green element I refer to is what we're trying to reverse it back to. So looking to move this sort of bus station out of there, put it along Middleburg Square Road, and in a more kind of linear fashion. And again, you can't quite see that on the drawings, but there's a series of bus stations there. And as I mentioned, as part of that feasibility work, it was really important to ensure that worked properly, and that we had that everything, the kind of sweeps and all the other kind of key components as part of the build of any traffic management was actually properly modelled so that it could work. So again, all this has been tested and ensures it kind of meets the relevant standards. We've worked very closely with Stagecoach as well to ensure that operationally it works for them, and then they're very happy with that at the moment as we've currently got it. Obviously, this will be developed further as we progress those designs to the next stage. Middleburg Square again is a bit of a gyratory, which is a legacy of the old ferry terminals. So the aim really is to try and slow that traffic down. So you've got this sort of one-way system here, but we'll have buses in there, and we'll have the kind of shared surface type approach. So it kind of makes drivers a little bit more cautious when they're driving along the road there. Again, all these designs will start to come through as we go to that next stage. And then the north part of sort of Middleburg there, that'll become a sort of a two-way system as well. So we'll have a sort of a new sort of traffic junction here, if you like. Again, a traffic junction here, and then we'll have got that roundabout at the top. So hopefully the flows of all of this scheme will work. And again, we've had all of that tested through our experts. Again, that was required as part of the levelling up fund to prove that it does work. So we've had all that modelling work carried out. And then as I come on to Shelland Street, this area down the bottom here, you've got this street here, which is called Guildhall Street, and it's kind of quite a rise if you go to the other part of Guildhall Street here. And what we're trying to do is try and bring them back together. So we're changing the road layout here again, making it into sort of a two-way system, but trying to create a bit more of a green park sort of area here, retaining importantly the parking, which I know is an important element for local people. But the aim really was to try and make that a much more inviting area to ensure it is not as essentially the road is sort of severs really the ability to cross the road. And we've, there's development sites, which is Ship Street, close by as well, so obviously enable that to work better to try and get people into the town centre, which is really important because obviously we want them to come into their local town centre and support their local businesses. And then this is Sandgate Road here. So again, this is Folker building. You can just see on the right there as it currently exists. And then hopefully with some work, we're looking to try and revamp that. Now, Folker as a building is obviously an isolated project, but actually as part of this scheme, we're looking to draw in hopefully about £2 million to do some enabling work to really get it up to standards, to really catalyse that project. So we're really hoping that we do get the money, because that will really enable that project to move forward as well. But that has to link in very much with the public realm that we create here in Sandgate Road. Sorry. All of this work really, and again, designers can get carried away with bespoke materials and other expensive items, and we were very cautious to kind of ensure that the maintenance, the legacy afterwards, is actually achievable, sustainable, so that when we do the project, it doesn't degrade over time. We want to make sure it's sustainable, so it can be maintained to a high standard that we hope that it will achieve when we deliver the programme. So again, it's just improving that, the look and the feel of this particular area here, try and make it into a kind of events space, enabling buskers and more activity to really improve the vibrancy of this particular area here. And hopefully by getting some occupancy into Folker as well, which will get these sort of footfall into this area as well. And we've got Guildhall Street here, and we're looking to put in sort of infrastructure there to sort of help with some of the markets. You've got the vegan market, which we've been trialling at the moment. Again, we're just looking to try and build on that and ensure we've got good infrastructure in place to enable that to thrive going forward. So that's again will be sort of the icing on the cake, really. So we're really kind of neaten up this whole core of the town centre. So you've got the kind of the new square here. You've got this kind of roadway, which is much more inviting. You've got this site here, which is Saga, and obviously that will come on at some point in the future. And they're quite excited. So we've again linked up with Saga. They're very excited. So this does come off. That will really help maybe entice them to do something quite novel and grand with that particular section as well, which then draws that whole area and regenerates that whole area together. And I think that's the last slide for everybody. So very much I'll stop sharing now.
Any comments? Right.
Yeah, picking up on your point about going too bespoke on some of the designs. I know Ashford, they bought some very fancy Italian light standards that went wrong, and then the company went bust, and it caused them all sorts of problems. So it needs to look good, but it needs to be sustainable, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now one of the things is, obviously you mentioned it was a category 1 priority list. So does that mean that the government have deemed Folkestone and Hythe quite high up in the pecking order when it comes to the worthiness to receive one-off grants, etc., because they view us as a deprived area, or has that got some other meaning to it?
Yeah, it basically is that. It's they've got a formula again, looking at deprivation. And we've got 3 very deprived wards in Folkestone East, so obviously that's drew attention to Folkestone as an area for us to focus in on. The priority 1 doesn't guarantee us money. It just means that we've been identified as a town or an area that needs help. So in theory, if it was neck and neck with a priority 2 or a priority 3, you'd like to think the priority 1 would win over. The aim, they were supposed to, I mean, the issue with the levelling up is that we're supposed to we've got to finish and deliver by that March 25, which is a really, you saw the work there that I just explained. It's a really tall order to get that done. I mean, we obviously said we can do that, but it's going to be quite hard for us to achieve that, more so now because they haven't announced the actual winners, if you like, of this this particular funding round. So that has been frustrating. They were supposed to have announced that in October. So we were lining everything up based on, right, get the contract or the sort of designers and the kind of consultants ready to rock as soon as we get word, and then we should be able to hit that deadline. You know, we've gone past that by a month. That's really, you know, we were on a tight deadline. That's really made it very tight for us to deliver on that. So we are expecting that there was an announcement today in the budget. They are still, which is really positive because I wasn't sure whether they were going to cut that, but they are still looking to support the levelling up agenda. They're still looking to commit the £1.7 billion to this round 2, which is really positive. So we're just hoping that we can, you know, receive that money now based on our bid. We're hoping they don't have to scale it back. That was another issue as well, that we might have to scale back our proposition if they wanted to take money for other areas of need within central government. So again, there's a few ifs and buts. We're trying to edge and create scenarios so that we can hit the ground running still based on the deadlines. But because it's going to be now, I think they said announced at the end of the year, they're going to have to move the goalposts because other districts that I've spoken to will not be able to deliver their programs either. So I think they'll extend it into 2026, which will make it viable. We are working with KCC as well on this particular program in terms of delivery. So a lot of the sort of change layouts that you saw on the plans that I showed you there do not need planning permission. They can do it under what's called Section 278. And so that hopefully kind of reduces the time lag on the scheme. So we'll be working, KCC will be a kind of a delivery arm, if you like, for us doing that, all those highways elements of work and some of the public realm works as well. So and we've actually commissioned work already. So it's out to tender at the moment through one of their frameworks. We've had to slow that down because of the announcement not coming when it was supposed to come. But we do have people who are interested in doing the role. So that's really good. So we're hoping we can ramp that up again quite quickly and then get the ball rolling to hopefully, if we're successful, deliver the scheme.
No, I think it looked really good. I mean, Folkestone does suffer from the problem. It's just a number of disjointed roads and you just sort of wander into one road and you wander into another road. There's no sort of central driving force there's no feel to it really at the moment, I don't think. It's just been haphazardly developed over the last 30-40 years, and it's never got over its faded past really from when it was a holiday destination. So no, I think it looked good.
Thank you.
It's been an ambitious project, and hopefully it'll all come out.
Yeah, it is. We think it's, you know, it's definitely a deliverable. It's just that delay in the announcement has kind of, you know, scuppered our timetable. So we're really keen to ensure that, and everybody knows about the delay of materials as well. So we've really got to get in quite early and start to get thinking about what type of materials are we looking to do and get those orders in quite quickly and all those kind of things you need to do to ensure that you're going to meet those deadlines, because it's a very different sort of environment to a normal project management process that you'd go through because of all the kind of chaos really in the wider economy. So but we're confident we can do it. We just need that announcement and then we can crack on.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody? There's no hands showing. No, in which case, thank you very much, Rod, and all the other officers who've taken part tonight for giving up their time. And we meet again in January.
Rod, would you mind sending that across to me so that I can attach it to the minutes for those that aren't
here?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah, no, I can do that.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
very much.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.